With Donna Adelson sucking up all the media attention, little old Charlie's been behind the scenes, but don't worry, he's been just as busy as his mama. Now, if you're like, who's Charlie? I forgot all about him. What was he like in the courtroom? Well, let's take a little gander down memory lane.
In the background, some Latin kings, probably Garcia and Rivera, right? Is that accurate?
No, I wasn't extorted by Katherine Magbanua.
You weren't?
That's not what I believed in 2014. As I sit here today, I believe that it was Katherine Magbanua, and I believe Sigfredo Garcia, but I don't know for sure. I was never there when she was ever talking to him, so I don't know if he was in on it with her or not.
All right.
At the end of August, she came and picked up the money, and that's when she asked me if I could put her on the books because none of this money was going to her, and she needed to get health insurance for her kids. So I said, yeah, I'll do and help you out. My son, I mean, I think it's normal with kids. You have a routine to put them to bed.
Right.
You got to brush your teeth. Can't forget to brush your teeth.
Yeah. A little dental humor couldn't hurt, right?
What's that? That's what happened. And I was stuck paying $3,000 a month.
But you could have gotten extorted for life just by the threat of death by Latin King, couldn't you, doctor?
I wasn't thinking about the blackmail. What I was trying to say is I don't know anything about Sigfredo. I don't know anything about this crime. I was trying to tell her that I'm harmless. I don't have any knowledge of what went on.
I'm telling you that the state of Florida has an innocent man behind bars. Telling you, Harvey.
So that is Charlie. We have been watching some videos recently of Georgia eating him up, but that is Charlie Adelson. So keep in mind, a quick 60-second overview. Charlie Adelson is currently in prison for the crimes that he has been convicted of, and those crimes were against and for the justice of Dan Markel. Dan Markel was Charlie's sister, Wendy's late husband, who Charlie, along with his mother and several other people, have been convicted of conspiring to form a plot, a whole thing, we'll be going into it, to kill Dan essentially in what is described as a very contentious custody battle. Now, like any other defendant out there, when these trials get wrapped up or whatever, they're like, well, hold on now. I don't want to be all up in this prison. I want out. And Charlie's done the same thing. So he filed an appeal. The state filed their response. And then Charlie has filed his response to the response. I forget the official name. We'll get in a second. And that's what we're going to be going over in today's video, is the response to the response type situation, okay? Now, as my little thing is going to say here, I ain't no lawyer, ain't no doctor, none of that stuff. This is going to be in layman terms and kind of revisiting some aspects of that case through the lens of Charlie's innocent eyes, I guess. So, that being said, grab your true crime blankie, grab your cuppeth, your please, well, this is please hold. I needed to roll your eyes hard enough one today because we're going to be sippineth from the cuppineth in today's video. So y'all, the holidays are upon us and almost here, and my place still looks like a moving truck sneezed in it, okay? Somehow I'm supposed to keep up with moving, with working out, with filming, with doing all the live stuff, and knowing where my spatula went, okay? And spoiler alert, I don't know where it is still. And all that is why Hungryroot has been coming in clutch this month. Hungryroot's like having a smart little grocery store that already knows what you like, shows up at your door and says, hey Paul, I got you. And honestly, same, because decision fatigue is real and my brain is still in a cardboard box from moving. Before you get your first delivery, they have you take the super quick quiz. It's nothing stressful, and then their smart cart starts filling itself with groceries and recipes based on how you eat, your goals, and your preferences. All that stuff. And look, they've learned very quickly that I'm on a high protein kick and living that low cal life. Oh, right, at least I try to. I mean, I'm trying to build these muscles and honestly just offset all the peppermint bark and mochas I'm getting ready to have this season. So this month I made 3 meals that fit my whole routine perfectly. High protein, low cal, super clean ingredients. And the best part, every single one of them gave me leftovers, so I actually stretched them into extra meals. I love that for myself and my grocery bill. And y'all, the variety, they ain't playing around. You get access to more than 50,000 recipes, and so many of them are ready in 15 minutes or less. Plus, over 1,000 grocery items. We're talking smoothies, snacks, veggies, proteins, sweets for the holidays, you name it. Even supplements, whatever you need. And quality-wise, they ain't loading their stuff up with artificial junk either. They cut out a ton of additives you'd normally see in packaged foods. The meats and seafood are clean, no hormones or antibiotics, tons of organic produce, non-GMO options, and brands I actually trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, Ithaca humus, all those good things. And because it's getting up to the holiday season, y'all, my attention span has been fried like a Christmas ham. Okay. And so their convenience and ease has been huge. I don't have the time, patience, or desire to stand in the grocery store line behind someone debating cranberry sauce brands and all that jazz. Hungryroot shows up at my door. It's pre-done. It's pre-selected. They keep it going. They keep it fresh, and I barely have to do any thinking behind it. Sold. So if you want to try Hungryroot for yourself, they are hooking the Sofa Squad up. So take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, you're going to get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Click the link below or go to hungryroot.com and use code Sofa Squad. That's 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life at hungryroot.com with code Sofa Squad.
Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup and hey, hey.
Now hold on everybody, let's do a quick sofa sidebar now. Keep in mind, ain't no cop, ain't no doctor, ain't no lawyer, ain't no therapist, ain't none of that fancy credentialed stuff, okay? Only credentials we got up in here is my sass, and this sofa. Now keep in mind also, I'm just giving my opinions on very public information, so do your own research, come to your own opinions, and drop them off in the comment section. And while you're down there, if you do like what you see here at the Sofa Squad, drop a little like, drop a little comment, drop a little share. It helps the channel out immensely. Now let's get edition. Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the sofa. That's a sofa. That's a pillow. This is a Roku remote. My name's Paul if you're new to the channel. If you're not new to the channel, my name's still Paul, at least for right now while I can remember it, okay? I'm kind of at that point where when I go room to room, I'm like, why am I here? What did I come in here for? Where's my pants? You ever hit that stage in life where like when you walk outside, you're like, I have a shirt on, I have pants, I have the car keys, we're good to go, okay? Well, that's where we're at, right? Anyways, so I already told you what we're gonna be doing in today's video. We're gonna be going over this and like mostly like the 5 main takeaways from it and looking at it through the lens of obviously what Charlie's lawyers, what Charlie essentially is saying. So like I said, this is Charlie's reply brief, okay? This is like a tennis game back and forth, okay? It's essentially his last chance that he's clapping back and being like, hold on now. I forgot to add a few little things in here. Let me clarify. Let me get my percentages right. So basically in Charlie's initial brief, he was like, hey y'all, by the way, that trial won't fair. I need a new one. And then the state was like, yeah, no, we're good over here. It totally was fair. You're right where you need to be. And now he's coming back and he's like, well, now hold on now. We're going to clarify this. We're going to do this over here, you know, but essentially I need a new trial. I need to go home. Ultimately, Charlie is wanting to convince the appeals court that there's something off with her right here. There's something off with the trial, something off with the conviction, something off with the case, the whole thing or whatever, so that he can get a new trial, obviously in hopes of going home. Now, what I want to do is go over the 5 takeaway topics, whatever you want to call it, that I saw in the brief that stuck out to me. So the first one we're going to talk about is the whole Tallahassee thing. Now, if you'll remember, Tallahassee was like a thorn in the Adelsons' side for this trial, right? Tallahassee is where Dan and Wendy were at. Okay, now when the separation started taking place, all this type of stuff, Wendy's wanted to relocate to South Florida, okay, bring the kids down there and all this. She essentially can't because of the custody situation, so she's viewing it like, oh my God, I'm stuck here, right? Okay, so the crime happens, yada, yada. Okay, the Adelsons, when I say the Adelsons, we're specifically talking about Charlie for sure and Donna secondary, right? They run neck and neck with this. They are absolutely, well, and Wendy too, but she wasn't on trial, but like her opinions and whatnot, at least through witness testimony, because her time on the stand, she'll make out like,
oh no, Tallahassee's great. I love this place.
but people behind the scenes were like, girl, hated it, okay? The Adelsons, Donna and Charlie, were like so convinced that had this trial been anywhere else, and we'll get to one of his statements, like even in the middle of the state or Miami or whatever, that this would have been a different outcome. I beg to differ, but you know, one never knows. Okay, so let's get into like what they were saying. So originally Charlie's claims were like, look, the pretrial publicity in Tallahassee was super intense. Fair trial wasn't going to be possible. So many jurors already thought that he was guilty. You know, the entire Leon County jury pool was infected before trial even started. And then he suggested that, you know, South Florida, somewhere in the middle of the state, anywhere, was going to be a better place than Tallahassee. And of course, this means that he didn't get a fair trial. Okay, then the state responded to him and they're like, oh no, hold up. Okay, that ain't how it's going to go, because guess what? You basically agreed to this. They remind him that the law in Florida is pretty simple on this. They're like, look, if you want to change a venue, you have to renew the objection at the end of jury selection or you lose it forever. And they're like, look, you lost it. Sorry. And they're like, you accepted the jury twice on the record. And I'm going to quote a little summary here. The judge is like, do you accept these jurors? And Charlie's like, yes, Your Honor, I really do. And the judge is like, do you accept the alternates? And Charlie's like, yes, Your Honor, I really do. Now, he never objects to this again. And then the state's like, they cite all the stuff from the Florida Supreme Court that's just like, honey, this is dead. Okay, let's move on from this. It ain't happening. So then in Charlie's latest thing, this is what he had to say. Charlie's like, nope, case law shows you don't have to re-object at the end if the bias is like already cooked in there from the start, basically. Then they'll go over all these past cases that reverse convictions even when the defense accepted the jury. He'll also bring up that Tallahassee is a small community for the purposes of media saturation. They'll even talk about how this was even stated by the court earlier in the case, okay? This is my take on this part right here. Now, again, this is coming from a non-lawyer person, okay? I don't care where this took place at. They were fixated on Tallahassee and it was a small town and everyone thought he was guilty and all the publicity and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I understand this in some scenarios, right? However, this case was so many different layers and intricates and all these type things that you really had to listen to the evidence to be like, okay, now wait, who did what and who called who and what was the bump and this, that, and the other. And so when you did that, it was like, yeah, this is pretty obvious what was going on. And what I'm getting at is this, like, you know how some of these cases we'll look at, you know, think of Joel Guy Jr., I think was his name, the guy who killed his family at Thanksgiving. I mean, this is pretty clean cut, right? It's like, hello, like it's pretty obvious what he did and it was brutal. Well, think about how many people were connected in the Dan Markel case. They got away with it for a couple of years, right? And so it was like, well, this person called this person and did this, but this person didn't have any part to do with this crime. It was complicated. So this wasn't like some clean cut type thing where everybody's like, yeah, I mean, we saw Charlie with a bloody machete in his hand. See what I'm saying? So this argument that it was just a Tallahassee thing, I just think that this is the Adelsons' entitlement and that they think they would get some kind of special privilege or be around like, you know, more big city type people in Miami. I don't know. But I personally don't think this is going to hold any water. Now, again, from a legal standpoint, I don't know like how that works as far as with the state saying like, no, this is case law. You agreed to the jury. You agreed to this. You agreed to that. I mean, from looking at it that way, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty black and white. You agreed to all this stuff and now you kind of got sour grapes because it didn't go your way. Now, the next issue I want to talk about is Charlie's issue with the jurors and some of the pesky little comments that they made. So this part relied on a few isolated remarks from potential jurors in the waiting area. Now, I'm just going to go over a few things here. So one juror referred to the case as a federal case involving the murder of the professor. Another said, we're effed, and that Adelson was guilty. And the third mentioned that the murder happened 9 years ago. Now, here's the thing. Each of the individuals were either excused, failed to appear for further questioning, or made no statement suggesting that they influenced others. Now, basically, the state's like, no, these comments didn't taint the jury pool, essentially. And the state's also like, and that also doesn't matter because you totally accepted the jury. So, hello, like, what are we going to do with all that? And Charlie's like, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do with all that. Charlie's like, the defense did keep objecting, hello, and the judge kept denying it. And he's like, these were just harmless comments, okay? Like, literally 87.34% of them were bad, okay? Charlie loves those little percentages. And Charlie's essentially like, once the pool is contaminated, you can't fix it. Now, again, on these kind of things right here, you know, it'll be interesting to see what takes place because if it is like, no, you accepted the jury, because again, this is the thing. They go through these little things like this to make sure that if a comment's made or this, that, the other, or whatever. It's very hard, in my opinion, to keep jurors and potential jurors and all these people, like, let's call it in line, if you will, right? Especially for something like this. I mean, hello, the one person who says something like, yeah, we're effed. Can you imagine going through jury selection or whatever and figuring out you're on a case like this? Please, right? I'd be like, look, y'all are gonna have to get me a little pillow and a blankie. Ain't no way I can sit up in that chair for however many weeks y'all are talking about. It's just not gonna happen. And I would be the one to be like, y'all, we are totally effed if we don't get blankies and pillows in Starbucks. Okay, it's gonna be a rough ride, but we're gonna do our duty. Okay, so now let's talk about the pesky text messages. So Charlie basically was like upset over text messages. The state excluded over like 400 text messages. And he was basically like, look, those text messages showed a very normal relationship between me and Katherine Magbanua, okay? They showed us talking about crocheting. They showed us talking about going to the Applebee's, okay? We weren't talking about murder. We weren't talking about, you know, adult activities, okay? It was normal stuff. And of course, he's trying to do this to show that she wasn't involved, like, in this plot to kill Dan Markel, right? He came up with numerous things or whatever. So he's wanting those to be shown and he's upset. Okay, well, this is what the state had to say about that. So the first thing that they say is basically like, hey, look, this is your own team's fault. Okay, at court, your team didn't even bring this stuff in because like a whole relevance issue came up. And so this is you and your people, your lawyer's fault. Now, there's also a whole thing called fundamental error. And the state's saying this did not qualify for what meets the standards of a fundamental error. That's fancy lawyer talk there. I'm just being honest. And then the biggest thing really is they were just like, look, this is just not even relevant to this case, okay? These were a few weeks before the murder occurred. And this is just like normal, ordinary romantic banter, just whatever, right? Now, if you watch the trial, if you listen to Charlie's phone calls, like after conviction, before conviction, when he was incarcerated, whatever, or his time on the stand, you know Charlie loves to hear himself talk. Can you imagine going through another 400 text messages of his in court? I cannot roll my damn eyes hard enough, right? Now, but also the state's like, look, you testified a whole bunch about these anyways, okay? And also, you know, there was like a lot of vulgar talk, a lot of, well, the sexual talk's in there, okay? You know, things like this that are just like highly inappropriate and just not relevant to what was at stake. But Charlie's over here wanted to be like, well, that shows that we had some kind of regular situation going on. This was anything but regular. Now, Charlie's comeback in the most recent thing goes as follows. So he's like, basically the written texts are going to be stronger than his testimony. And he's like, I don't care if they're offensive or not. I wanted them admitted, right? I want every last little detail up there. He's also like, he wasn't introducing them to prove the truth of the text, but to show the state of mind and normalcy. And then he also goes into the whole, you know, well, Florida case law says that defendants must be allowed to present evidence that supports their theory of innocence. Now, let's talk about the fourth one, the bump, the exclusion of evidence. Buckle up. Okay, so the issue with this is about a remark that Charlie made before the murder of Dan. Now, the defense wanted this admitted at trial. Now, this is where Charlie allegedly told someone that, quote, he knew how extortion worked. Now, his attorneys were like, this statement was admissible under the state of mind exception to the hearsay rule. And like, this basically showed his fear of being blackmailed, not to prove the truth of what was said. This is ultimately treated as inadmissible hearsay. Now, if you recall, the bump in this case was really what undid them all. Okay, now just to quickly go back over that again, this is when Donna Adelson was approached by an undercover on the street. He hands her a newspaper article with, you know, money written on it, phone number, whatever. Essentially, it's like, you know, you need to contact, we have people in jail, you need to take care of them, whatever. And so this causes Donna to call Charlie to call Katherine Magbanua, and Katherine Magbanua to call her hitman / baby daddy, all these people, right? And then that phone number from the undercover makes it all the way down the line and all the way back up it. And it's called the bump, okay? Now, also keep in mind, remember, Charlie is an expert at extortionists, at blackmail, you know, at Latin Kings, you know, Charlie knows, okay? I've never seen somebody want to so badly prove themselves to know how these criminal enterprises work or whatever in hopes of getting out of trouble or whatever. I don't even know, like, his thought process, if he just thinks it's cool or whatever. But essentially, this is where this is kind of biting him in the butt. So, like, back in 2016, this is when he allegedly told the undercover agent, I can't remember exactly what it was right now on the phone or whatever, but it was all on the lines of like, it's not done like that. And he's talking to his prior extortion attempts. Now, Charlie's defense is basically like, well, this shows that Charlie believed he was talking to different extortionists, okay? And this supports the story that he was being blackmailed, not like trying to make some murder. And this is where the state came back and was like, I don't care, it's hearsay, it can't come in here. And then Charlie's most recent comeback on this was as follows. He's like, it wasn't offered for truth. It's offered to show the state of mind, which is allowed under Florida's hearsay exceptions. The jury needed this to understand his reaction to the bump. So essentially what's going on here is he feels like this is important because he's like, you know, his theory is, I didn't hire anybody, you know, keep this in mind. He's trying to say, I was being extorted. I wasn't trying to hire a hitman. I wasn't trying to do this. And the jury never got to have all the proper information to really weigh that out. Now, the fifth and last issue we're going to go over is the cumulative, I can't say that word, error claim. Now, this is where Charlie's saying, if none of these issues, like on their own, are going to get me a new trial, then we need to look at them as a whole, right? Now, the state's basically like, well, look, that would insinuate or need to be present at least that several things occurred that all went wrong. And they basically go back out through everything and they're like, no, here's the issues you brought up and here's how this was handled. So this is, no, there is no cumulative thing here because none of that even happened on a single standalone basis to begin with. Now, ultimately, of course, what is Charlie Charlie looking for? Well, just like I said in the beginning of the video, reverse the conviction and give me a new trial. Now, again, it's a long shot, right? Here's the thing too, and like, let's look at it from his shoes. And this is it's so true for a lot of these defendants and whatnot. Any defendant, anybody who's going through this situation is going to, for the most part, exhaust their stuff, right? I mean, it's what they don't want to be in there, right? I get it. So he's going to sit there and do the same thing. He's going to exhaust all his legal resources for this. And this is just part of that. Now, his ultimately probably what he would want to do is to have them come back and say, you know what, you're right. We're giving you a new trial and this wasn't done right. You're going to get a new trial. And then from there, I would imagine he would say, and I don't want it to be in Tallahassee. He would start the whole process over because in their world, they truly believe if they could just get to Miami or Boca or West, I don't know, Orlando, I guess anywhere but Tallahassee, right? And on one level, it's like, okay, the crime occurred there. It was shocking. It was this, it was that. I could understand some level of wanting to do that. But again, like I stated earlier, I feel like the evidence speaks for itself in this trial. Now, of course, at this point, it's like, who hasn't heard of it, right? I mean, this is a very notorious case. This has gone on for years and years and years. And it's finally, when I say wrapped up, there's still some, questionable stuff out there about Wendy, what we'll see happen with that, of course, and what people feel like they want to have happen. But for the most part, this is wrapped up and whatnot, and everyone is where they need to be at this point, meaning Donna, Charlie, Katherine, all these people. Okay, so that being said, that's the only thing I can see him actually thinking would come of this. Now, again, he doesn't have anything else to do. He's in prison. He's not going anywhere for the rest of his life, right? So, like, what's it to him to sit here and drag appeals out and file appeals, especially since this is just anybody has this right to do, and rightfully so. Obviously, the appeals courts, they're there for a reason. If something really did take place like this. So this isn't like oh my God, I can't believe he's asking for this to me, because this is just standard protocol, right? This is bam, we're going to pick this apart. We're going to see if we can get you a new trial. I personally think, in my non-legal opinion, and again, we've seen these cases and how they go, and anything in this day and age, you never know what a jury's going to say. Okay, period, end of story. We can kind of take guesses and whatnot, but I do not think that a jury would listen to the story that he concocted and look at the evidence, because again, the recorded phone calls, it's such a far reach to even try to wrap any kind of lies around to say that these were anything but planning a murder, right? The bomb, all this stuff is so plainly clear what they were talking about. So that's where I feel like with Charlie, he has gaslit his own self. He has mansplained his own self into thinking that this is something that it's not. And also, these are probably people, when I say these, I'm talking about the Adelsons. These are people that just get to do what they want to do, and they don't hear no, and they really don't know what to do when that happens. And it's like, well, let's just offer up something and they'll have to believe it. No, they don't. This is like a cold splash of water in their face, this whole thing. They are finally being held accountable for their actions, and it's probably something they've never really experienced. So, that being said, what do you think? Do you have any thought processes on this? Do you think that it's going to, there's a chance? Do you think this is just something to do for a Tuesday for Charlie? Let me know in the comment section. And while you are down there, if you don't mind, dropping off some little sofas for myself, Roscoe and Spirit, Bo and Luke, who are sleeping on the heating pad over there, and you, the Sofa Squad, the most important, because you make the channel possible. It wouldn't be here without you. And until we get down in that comment section to do all that little homework I just listed off there, bam, I'll see y'all soon.
I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.
Welcome to the Sofa Squad, sipping from the cup that hey, come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough.